in this video, we're going to talk about tips and tricks when it comes to executing your drop spins. A lot of times, whenever I'm teaching or another color guard instructor is talking to me about teaching rifle technique at a brand new program, or if the technique program that they had wasn't sufficient, a lot of times they're so wrapped up in making sure that everything is perfect. I want to say right now, when it comes to drop spins and when it comes to color guard, first and foremost, it's going to be a trial and error process. Now, at the very beginning stages, it's important that whenever you see these things that I'm going to talk about below, that you go ahead and correct them before they become bad habits. And I highly recommend that if you're telling kids to go spin at home, that you do some kind of video assignment so that you can not only hold them accountable for their personal practice time, but you can also watch what they're doing and then you can correct. So the first thing is making sure that my rifle is flat. That's going to be a big one, making sure that my posture is correct. If there's any kind of issue with the butt or the tip drooping, you want to make sure that you correct that, keeping that flat, really thinking about squeezing and pulling apart that rifle, engaging those back muscles. You want to think about if there is a grape between my wing bones, that I'm squeezing that grape and engaging those back muscles, because that's what, from your back muscles, that's what gives you the tension in your arms all the way to your extremities into your fingertips. So make sure you're really working on that. First and foremost would be posture, or what the judges call postural efforts. So we're starting at that flat. Now the first thing is, are you going to under rotate or over rotate? 9 times out of 10, what kids will do is they'll lift up on their prep and then they'll go into their down. And when that happens, they'll go ahead and they'll go too far because they're getting extra momentum. You want to make sure that they keep their flat where it is and that they're just pushing straight down so that the rifle can be in that correct perpendicular position. Then there are also other students who sometimes don't push and they just let go and their rifle is under rotated. So that's the first thing that I would look at is, are they doing some kind of extra prep going into their going into the 8 count, and where are they on count 8? Are they over rotated? Are they under rotated? Or are they correct? Now the next thing is going to be going into that first spin. Am I squeezing and stopping my rifle where it needs to be, or am I wobbling through it? This is going to be something really important because, like I said in my how to do drop spins video, it's all about muscle memory and creating that muscle memory. So if you are not a teacher and you are a student and you want to work through how to teach yourself how to do these drop spins correctly, then I would look in a reflective surface, or I would even get my phone or my iPad out and I would see what I'm doing using a slow motion feature. Or you could, if you have, I think it's like $6 or $7, you can purchase Coach's Eye, which is a really great teaching tool to use, because you can really look at your angle and slow that down and see exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. You can also take 2 videos and compare them side by side. It's a tool that I use all the time in my teaching practice for my color guard, and I know that other color guard instructors do that really across the nation. It's very helpful, and it's just a few bucks, but it's just a great tool in general. So make sure that you're utilizing those reflective surfaces or the technology to where you can record yourself and you can see what you're doing. So the next thing would be making sure that as I'm going into that spin, that I'm not lifting my elbow and pulling it out to my side. A lot of times I have students do this, and what it's doing is it's going to have you choke up on your rifle and it's going to have you lose control. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your elbow near your side with just a little bit of room there. And then from there, if I'm spinning from my side, let's say I do 2 spins in a row, 1 and 2. My forearm is nice and flat. If I am having an issue vertically with my placement of my forearm, 1 and 2, it's going to be hard for me to control my rifle, or 1 and 2. it's gonna also be hard that way. So I wanna make sure that vertically, that everything looks good, and then also, if I'm going from the side, that from the right to the left side, that it's also looking good as well. You wanna keep your wrist in line with your elbow. If your wrist goes to the right, 1 and 2, what happens is you're going to tend to want to go that way with your body to overcorrect. You could also want to drop your right shoulder to correct that. So it's super important that as you're thinking about this, that you're really making sure that from all aspects, vertical and horizontal, front and back, that you're not doing anything to disrupt these drop spins. The other thing is, just like I said just a second ago, moving front and back. If you push your elbow out to the front, then it's gonna be harder for you to control those spins. And same thing, if you're pushing your elbow to the back, what's happening is my tip is being pulled towards my knees. Now when that happens, I run the risk of my rifle being close to my face and hitting my face, or hitting my knees. So it's super important that when you're spinning, that you're really thinking about pressing that wrist out, because if you're pulling using this top wrist muscle, I don't know what it's called, but if you're pulling using this top wrist muscle, 9 times out of 10, you'll hit yourself in the face. If you're pulling and you're thinking about kind of like cranking your wrist like that and breaking it, then you're gonna be using these muscles right here, which you're gonna have a hard time spinning because you're gonna hit your knees. So the first thing is gonna be making sure that you're controlling your rifle. The second thing is gonna be making sure that your rifle is in your toaster. The third thing is gonna be making sure that your elbow is where it needs to be and it's not moving. The fourth thing is making sure that your wrist is in line with your elbow so that you're not wandering off from side to side. Because if you do that, you can start spinning on this 45 plane and pulling that shoulder back to overcompensate so that you can catch up, which is then gonna create a bad habit. So you really wanna make sure that you're really creating that 2D picture of whenever you're spinning your rifle, that it's a circle and that you're just rotating your wrist. That's gonna be super important. Now, with all of that being said, the next big thing that we wanna watch for is this, looking at your hand. If you are a new spinner, you're gonna want to look at your hand, and it's okay if you're spinning and you glance using your eyes. Because when I glance using my eyes, I'm thinking about keeping my posture where it's at. If I turn my head, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna hunch over and I'm gonna drop my shoulder, and then that's when things can go off of being in that flat plane, in that toaster, and it can turn more to that 45-degree angle. So it's really important that you're maintaining those good posture habits as you're spinning. The next thing is, once you get comfortable with being able to spin and do small glances like this, is thinking about keeping that posture up as you're spinning and just looking forward. As I'm doing this, I'm using my peripheral vision, and I can see my hand. I can see my hand if I'm looking straight ahead, or even if I'm looking lifted. I can see my hand in my peripheral vision, so I can see that it's spinning. So it's going to be important that as you get comfortable with those spins, that you're thinking about now changing your focus to upwards, because as I'm doing these spins, I'm gonna wanna perform them, and I'm gonna wanna perform them to the audience. Why? Because people are paying to see you. And it's creating those good performance habits. Because think about it this way. If you are doing any kind of choreography, unless your choreographer or instructor tells you that you specifically need to look down or look at your piece of equipment and you have a tendency of looking down, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the student who gets that comment or that correction of making sure that you have that performance quality, making sure that you're shifting your focus up and that you're looking up towards the audience. So starting at this beginner level and already thinking about those things is going to help create better performance habits. It's gonna create better technique for you, and it's gonna create better performance habits. Now, As you go into more consecutive spins, the things that we talked about earlier, you're going to start to get tired because obviously your body isn't used to this. So it's going to be really important that you're thinking through all of these things and you're checking in with yourself and with your body. A lot of times whenever I'm doing consecutive spins, once I get to, I don't know, 100 or 150, I start to get tired because I start to relax. I'm not engaging my muscles the way it should be. I'm not engaging my core. I'm not engaging my glutes. I'm not thinking about engaging my back muscles. I start to get sloppy and I start to lift my wrist as opposed to pressing that forearm down and really just thinking about rotating that wrist. And in the long run, I'm creating more effort for myself. So the big thing is as you work up to these things, think about what you're doing and think about the way that you look. When it comes to color guard, you always want to look good because somebody is always going to be taking that picture of you. So if you can only do 10 spins and look amazing, then do 10 spins and look amazing until you can get to 20 spins and look amazing. You want to think about doing this in increments and working your way up there. The one thing that I noticed from a lot of, color guard students is they get frustrated when they're starting out because they see this like crazy skill and they want to learn it. Well, here's the thing, is in this tips and tricks video, I can talk to you about making sure that you don't pitch your nose forward when you're spinning. I can talk to you about making sure that your wrist stays in front of your elbow. But when it comes to really learning how to have a solid foundation with, color guard basics, the best thing that you can do is be a great student. Just like a music student, you're not going to play through a piece. You're going to take it a couple bars at a time. It's the same thing with color guard. You want to start off with a manageable set of counts to make sure that you're doing things correctly. Once you do that, then you can move on. Don't move on if you can get through 10 spins sloppily. Work to make those 10 spins the best that they can possibly be, and then go into 20, 30, 40, 50 spins. Because if you do that, you're going to create those good habits and you're going to get better faster. It's about quality, it's not about quantity. Now, when it comes to stopping your rifle, there are many different ways to do it. You can stop it just by itself. You can stop it with what I call like a half stop, or you can stop it with a full stop, which is when you do a full rotation. Now, in order to do this, it's going to be important for you to learn how to do a single. So before you even get to that point, work on doing just a regular stop. Don't do like a full single rotation stop. Work on that half stop because again, it's about baby steps. Now, a lot of people are going to be super tired, 99, 100 stop, and they're going to want to lift that rifle up. It's going to be super important that you just think about 99, 100, stop. I just turned my wrist over at my spin spot. I didn't lift up my wrist. I just kept it where it was at. I turned it over. I didn't push it off to the left or to the right side. Now, a lot of times people will have incorrect hand placements. It's going to be really important that you work on those and you really think about from, your spins, 99, 100, stop, about reaching out. And if I'm here, I'm going to want to make sure that next time I do my stop and practice that I'm reaching further out so that my hand is going to be at the proper stop position. Same thing with the left hand. If your left hand is coming up short and it's by the bolt instead of splitting the swivel in the bolt, then you're going to really want to think about from that spin position, reaching out. And that's going to help you. The other thing is going to be making sure that you're really engaging and squeezing and pulling apart when you get to the stop position. That way your rifle doesn't wobble. The next thing is going to be making sure that as you go into your stop, that you're not over rotating, which will mean that your tip will go down, or under rotating, which will mean your butt will go down. So you want to make sure that you're not changing your approach or your speed variation when it comes to just a regular stop. Now, when it comes to like doing a full stop or a single stop, whatever you want to call it, you will have a variety of speed change happen because you're doing extra rotation, so just be aware of that. But for the very beginners, you really want to think about just control, control, control. Now, let's say that I'm somebody who has an issue with spinning, just like normal spinning vertically. A great tool would be if I am pitching towards my knees like that, to think about pulling my thumb back as I'm doing that. And when I pull my thumb back, what I'm doing is I'm correcting that pitch. Now, if your thumb is too far like towards you, you're going to be pitching back towards you on that back pitch. So you really want to find that happy medium. And something that helps is spinning up against a wall. Make sure that it's not glass, and make sure that you're not doing this inside because, you know, your parents. But make sure that you're spinning up against the wall and that you're really thinking about making sure that your rifle is vertical. If you can't tell whether your rifle is vertical or not, have somebody or you yourself take some kind of technology and record yourself and figure out what you're doing and how it feels, and then correct it and see how that feels. That way you can have that trial and error process and kind of put that detective hat on and figure it out for yourself. Because personal practice time is all about getting better by yourself. You want to make sure that when you're in rehearsal, you've already figured out these things so that when you're, you know, with your ensemble or when you're with your instructor or your, you know, captains, section leaders, whoever, they're not having to take that time out of rehearsal to correct those habits. So that's something that you can do. Now, with the left side, it's going to be the same exact thing. Obviously, it's just a different part of the rifle. So if I'm pitching forward, yeah, that means that my butt is going to be closer towards me. I want to think about pulling that thumb back, just like we talked about, but not too much, because if I pull it too much, then it's going to be towards my face, and I run the risk of hitting my face. Same thing applies. Go ahead and like spin up against the wall. Now, if I am having issues with my hand, like my wrist moving, two things that can help. And number one, if you don't have like a corner of a wall where you can put part of your arm up against, then what you can do is just take your two fingers and you can just put them out or your hand out and make sure that your rifle is spinning right in front of you. You don't, again, want to look down because then what's going to happen is you're going to pull that shoulder back. So maintain that good posture and use those two fingers or that hand to make sure that your wrist stays in line with your elbow. You can do the same thing on the left side. And like when it comes to like anything else, just really think through what you're doing and be creative. Think about different ways on how you can fix that. Because, you know, there's no one tell-all solution when it comes to color guard. As a student, you might have somebody tell you the same correction and tell you 3 different ways, and it doesn't click until, you know, the 4th person tells you in a different way. So make sure that, you know, just like your leadership and your instructors and your friends are helping you out and helping you learn these skills, make sure that you as well are really thinking about different ways that you can be proactive in your learning experience when spinning drop spins. I'm not going to go any further. I know I'm kind of going on a soapbox. This is just, you know, from one instructor to another or a student. This is just things that I tend to notice. And really when it comes down to it, it's all about patience, determination, and troubleshooting. You want to make sure that you're really thinking about what you're doing and you're assessing whether you're right or wrong. And just understand that it's going to take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to be able to pick up a rifle and do 500 drop spins. So unless you're like absolutely like a big natural talent and you're super amazing and can do, you know, just the craziest things on the first try. But I hope my comments have helped. If there's anything specific that you need help with, go ahead and comment down below. Or if you're my student, go ahead and send me a message on Remind or an email. please watch through this video, fast forward, you know, rewind, do whatever you need to do. And, you know, if there is anything that you need at a slower pace, there is a feature on YouTube that you can use in your settings where you can slow down this video. So if you really want to look at my hand placements in a really slow motion because you're having a hard time understanding, go ahead and do that. Or again, if you're my student or if you are somebody watching this video, you can comment or you can send me an email. I hope my tips and tricks were helpful. I know I kind of went on a little rant there because, you know, I'm an educator, but when it comes down to it, if you're learning rifle, you're gonna be great at it. So just make sure that you're giving yourself grace and that you're taking time and you're just really getting that foundation where it needs to be. I